Hey humans, it's Brittany and welcome to my library. Today we are going to be doing a video on the top 20 books I read in my childhood that had an incredible impact on me as a reader and also as a human. This video was inspired by this little book, 101 Books to Read Before You Grow Up. This is chock full of the must-read books for kids. It has a lot of classics like Where the Wild Things Are, Alice in Wonderland, but it also has some books that are pretty new and contemporary. The first book that had a giant impact on me as a reader, and was probably one of the first series that I really enjoyed, was the Junie B. Jones series by Barbara Park. Apparently, my mom would save up her quarters so that we could go to the Borders and buy new copies. To the Borders. Rest in peace. I loved Junie B. Jones because she was sassy and fierce, and whether or not she's a good role model or a feminist icon, I still think that she is a wonderful character. Series number 2 is the A to Z Mysteries. I loved the A to Z Mysteries for many reasons. One, alliteration is still, to this day, my favorite literary device. I love alliteration, and all of the titles were things like The Haunted Hotel, The Canary Caper, The Deadly Dungeon. Another reason why I loved the A to Z Mysteries was the one character, Ruth, I think was her name, would always color coordinate. She would always have a red shirt, red pants, red socks, and red shoes, or a blue, yellow, etc. And I was obsessed with that. The next the next book is Because of Winn-Dixie by Kate DiCamillo. This is actually my signed copy when I met the author a year or so ago, and she was everything you would think she would be. I actually saw the movie of Because of Winn-Dixie before I read the book, and I enjoy both of them very much, and it's so good. And I usually don't like stories about animals, but I like this one. The next series is the Fudge-mania series, also including otherwise known as Sheila the Great. These books were hilarious. I remember actually laughing out loud when I read them. They follow the story of Peter, who is at one point in 4th grade, in Tales of a 4th Grade Nothing, and his little brother Fudge, who is awful. Everything embarrassing that a little brother can be, which is very relatable. And it's just their antics. And it's also the reason why I'm scared of corners. In a part of the book, Fudge or Peter is talking about if you would step on the corner of a couch, then there would be like a sinkhole underneath it. I don't know, I'm probably mixing up like Crazy Dreams and also this book. But still to this day, if I can avoid like stepping in line of a corner, I will. Random. The next series is a series that my sister and I both loved. Again, another mystery series. I was big into those. And that is the Mandy series, such as Mandy and the Secret Tunnel. My sister and I would sometimes argue over who got to check out which Mandy book from the library. I remember reading every single one of those books. They were full of mystery and friendship. They also were pretty predictable, which I kind of liked. The next book is one of my favorites that I have actually reread over the years, and that is The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle. I love this book because if you want to talk about a fierce female protagonist, Charlotte Doyle is your girl. So basically the story is she is this naive, sheltered, I think she's 13, and she goes on a ship all by herself. She's supposed to have accompaniment, but she just goes all by herself. She's sailing across the ocean to go be with her family after graduating from some boarding school. And she's timid and kind of snooty and sheltered, and sorry, spoiler alert, at the end she becomes like the captain of this ship, and there's this super incredible scene at the end where she's in the crow's nest, and it is one of my absolute favorites. I read this again my freshman year of college, and it was incredibly inspiring to me. The next book series is the Magic Treehouse series. I think this is one of everyone's favorites because it is so classic and so iconic, and of course, so wonderful. I love the Magic Treehouse series because they also had some nice title fun things going on, and Jack and Annie are just timeless characters that I hope and feel like will live on for a long, long time. The next book is The Last Wang Doodles. I think one of my teachers, maybe in 3rd grade, read this book out loud to us, and I was enraptured. I don't really remember much about it except there was a group of children and maybe like an old man, and they had to go to this magical land and do all of these tests and like puzzles and things to find the last of the really great Wang Doodles, which, I'm sorry, is the coolest name for a mythical creature. Next book is, obviously, if you've seen my name, is my favorite, and that is Matilda by Roald Dahl. Obviously, all of Roald Dahl's books are good, but Matilda is the best. Definitely saw the movie when I was small, but I distinctly remember sitting in my 2nd grade classroom on the little reading rug and reading this book and just laughing at the illustration of Miss Trunchbull, and it is still to this day my favorite. I have many special editions of this book. I think this is from my friend Matt when we did Matilda in high school. It's a big story. Anyways, I love Matilda. It's one of the best. Next up is the American Girl Doll books. I'm picking this book for 2 reasons. One, because I genuinely love the idea of the American Girl Doll and how inclusive and just really awesome they are. But also, those books smelt so good. I know that different publishers and different books have different smells to them, but the American Girl Doll books are just, the smell is top notch. It is the best, and it smells like I'm in 3rd grade all over again. The next book is The Penderwicks. I loved The Penderwicks because it was a contemporary book that just follows 4 siblings, and I think they had the same makeup of my family with my siblings, and the relationship was definitely uncanny between them, and it's just them over a summer, I think, and there's a whole series of them. I only ever read the first one, but I liked it because it was an accurate sibling portrayal that I could relate to. The next book series is Spiderwick. Here's how obsessed with Spiderwick I was. Not only did I love the movie starring Freddie Highmore and read all of the books, but I used to carry Arthur Spiderwick's field guide to the fantastical world around you underneath my arm everywhere I went. And I would go in the forest that was behind my house and try to find fairies and hobgoblins and phoenix, and I was obsessed. My copy of that book must have been torn to bits. It was so good, and I loved that book. Loved the whole series, but especially loved the fantastical guide. Next up is a book that I have kind of mixed emotions on. It's Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume. One, Judy Blume and her advocacy for writing realistic and honest books for kids is so cool. A lot of her books have been banned because she writes and speaks to kids like they know what's going on, because they do. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret was incredibly comforting to me when I was in like 11 years old to 13 years old, around that time, because I didn't feel so weird and I didn't feel like I was alone. And that's why this book is really, really good. Rereading this book in college was not fun because being 11 to 13 years old was not fun, and I didn't want to recreate that in my head. So I didn't like it as a reread, but it was really impactful when I first read it. The next book is a book that I will probably talk about until the cows come home. That is A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L. Ingle. This is actually the edition that I read when I first read Wrinkle in Time, probably like 7th grade. And I actually have the entire series in this little mass market paperback editions because my husband is incredible and he bought me the whole series. But anyways, A Wrinkle in Time is another one of those strong female protagonists. And the reason why I love Meg Murray is because she's so flawed and so, like, discovering what it means to be a human. And it's really good. I also love that Madeline L. Ingle is a Christian author, and so she writes this sci-fi book with also a lot of Christian undertones, quite like another book I'm going to talk about in a minute. And I really admire that about her. The series honestly falls apart after the first book, but I love the first book, and my personal copy is highlighted and underlined and written in the margins, and it's the best. The next book is that other Christian fiction undertones book I was mentioning, which is the Chronicles of Narnia, more specifically The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, although I do distinctly remember reading the entire series. I had copies from my uncle that looked quite like The Wrinkle in Time that I read the whole box series of. So Chronicles of Narnia is also one of my faves. The next one is a series that I also devoured, and I remember begging my mom to take me to Borders again to get the next copy, and that was A Series of Unfortunate Events. I could probably make a whole video of why these books were great, but it was again playing on that mystery theme that I loved in my books so much. But Lemony Snicket, / whatever his name is so evil because I'm convinced that you can't solve the crime of the Sugar Bowl and the VFD, because I had the letters to Beatrice, I had the unauthorized autobiography, I think there was another companion book, and I had like notebooks full of notes trying to solve this mystery of Count Olaf and the Baudelaire orphans, and I couldn't. And I'm convinced that you actually can't solve the mystery, and he wants it that way. But I loved those books. Also, Klaus Baudelaire was probably one of my first literary crushes. So that's a big confession. The next book is another series that I distinctly remember the first one most, is the Dark Hills Divide series by Patrick Carman. So when I was in 7th grade, I wrote a book, and I can't honestly tell you what events happen in this book and what events happen in the book that I wrote, because this is basically the inspiration for the book. It's a combination of this and Arthur and the Invisibles. So I really don't remember much about this book, but I just remember loving it and devouring it, and the main character being incredibly relatable. And I would definitely reread this series. Definitely. Next up, speaking of writing books, I received this book for my 7th grade birthday, whatever year that is. And it's Writing Magic by Gail Carson Levine, the author of Ella Enchanted and some other of my favorite children's books. And I was big into writing when I was younger, and this book was given to me as a birthday present by my friend Miranda, and it is chock full of actually really good writing advice that I should probably pick up again. So, Writing Magic. The next two books are my final two, and I definitely saved the best for last. So I'm going to do this one first. This is the So You Want to Be a Wizard series, the Young Wizard series by Diane Duane. This book is kind of feels like a fever dream, because I distinctly remember parts of it, which I honestly don't do with many books. But I loved this series, and the second book where they go underwater is just incredible. It is about these two kids, Nita and Kit, and they find this magical book that is called So You Want to Be a Wizard. And then they become little children wizards or something. I don't know, but it is so good, and it's a mix of fantasy, but also relies heavily on some science fiction themes. And it's so good. So good. The last book that I have, you'll be able to tell that it's one of my favorites because I still have my original copy and it is torn to bits. That is Inkheart by Cornelia Funke, and I just want to show you. It's taped on the inside. It has my name, and then it says 5B, which was my 5th grade homeroom, 5th grade class, but it is just torn to bits. I loved this book because of the premise. It is about a girl and her father, when he reads out loud, can bring things out of the books, and it's so good. This series is incredible. Ink Spell, which is the sequel, is definitely my favorite because Dustfinger is another one of my very early literary crushes. Paul Bettany also didn't help that. I love Inkheart. It's so good. Okay, so thanks so much for watching. This was 20 of my favorite books that I read when I was a small child. So feel free to talk about your favorite books that you read when you were small. if there were certain genres that you liked, or maybe even certain authors. I definitely missed a few of my favorites today, but I tried to narrow it down as much as I could. Thanks so much for watching.